Hello and welcome to the Rover Media Podcast, The Midnight Choir. We are here today with Savannah Stewart. How are you, Savannah?
I'm good, Isaac. How you doing?
I'm good. Please, we encourage you to go check out our latest article, which was by one of our fellows. Savannah, what are the fellows that we have at the Rover at the moment?
We have two fellows. They are doing a fellowship. It's a partnership that we're doing with Journalists for Human Rights. Journalists for Human Rights is paying the salary of two emerging journalists who are working with us for 6 months. Doing great work. We have Neha Cholanji and Natalia Rivera Gomez. You can find their work at therover.ca. And the last article that we had was by Neha Cholanji. It came out this week. It was about going into like behind the scenes of the negotiations between McGill University and the student encampment that was the pro-Palestine encampment. You know, what were sort of the sticking points between the two parties that led to a breakdown of negotiations, which preceded the clearing of the encampment by McGill University. So it's a super interesting article. And
we really recommend you check out the stuff that we've been doing. We have some amazing articles coming up, and the ones that have recently come out are things such as articles on the illegal dumping in the Indigenous territories around Montreal. We have one that's in progress right now on the justice system of Quebec that we got a grant for because it's an amazing subject to talk about. Right now, Savannah's running the Rover.
Yeah. Chris is on vacation.
Vacation.
I am the Rover.
Savannah is her name is Savannah the Rover Stewart.
Yeah, that's right.
Mine is Isaac the Producer Wild.
Yeah.
And so please, if you are enjoying that kind of stuff, it is long form editorial reporting on the most part. We encourage you to go to therover.ca/support-us and check out our paid and our free newsletters. They come once or twice a week, generally speaking. Yep. Maybe sometimes every 2 weeks, but I'm pretty sure it's always every week.
Pretty much at least once a week.
Pretty much once a week.
Maybe sometimes it's every 10 days, but...
Yeah, but very consistently once a week is generally what we do. And we encourage you to support us by giving money there, signing up for the free newsletter, liking and subscribing to this video. We do reporting every week on Friday. This video comes out today. It's a little late. No big deal. I was over in Saguenay. It was incredible. I encourage you to go. The fjord is unbelievable. And just check out everything that we're doing. You can go on your podcast app. You can follow the Midnight Choir. You can listen to this if you don't want to be watching a YouTube video or having that in the background. But I know a lot of people you like that, and people with YouTube Premium can listen in the background. But if you just want the audio version, go there. Check out therover.ca. We have everything over there. You can read all the articles. It's an incredible community to be a part of. We are trying to change and grow the conversation here in Montreal and across Quebec. Today, we are going to discuss a few news items. And we're going to start off with a follow-up to our last episode. If you didn't hear that, we were talking about harm reduction and safe consumption sites here in Montreal, specifically in the Saint-Henri community. And Pierre Poillievre has come out with a new statement this week. What was it, Savannah?
He announced that when he is prime minister, he will defund safer supply services. He'll remove all federal money from these programs. Just a quick little catch up. Safer supply is basically it's programs that are providing drugs that we know are they're regulated, therefore they are not tainted. And so this is a way to counter the toxic drug crisis that we are dealing with as a country. It's a evidence-based harm reduction practice. There is evidence that supports this. And yeah, Pierre Poillievre is not a fan, and he will remove all federal money from these services. He's going to divert the money, he says, into treatment, so like rehab services.
Is that an effective solution, would you say, Savannah, or would you say this is kind of wishy-washy / how is he going to effectively divert funds? And is he going to divert funds?
Well, I would say that what I find most problematic about it is that you're pitting harm reduction services against treatment, as if it's this dichotomy of like one or the other. And I think that that's where the problem lies, because I think that we're dealing with such a complex issue. I think that the evidence is showing that we need many different services for many different people. It's not like it's either harm reduction or treatment. I think that those are two services that meet different needs along like a continuum of someone's journey to get clean. You need different things at different point on that journey, and harm reduction and treatment meet two different needs that people experience.
One can be the passage to the other, would you not say?
Yes.
We discussed
That's a
that
great
a
way
lot.
to put it.
Yeah, we discussed that a lot last week, I think, in depth. So please, if you're interested in this subject, I think our last week's discussion was quite comprehensive about this. But people who are in drug addiction, who are struggling with that, who are struggling with homelessness, they have the opportunity to seek treatment, to have a safe supply. Safe supply allows them not to have drugs with fentanyl laced in it. For example, in BC, we are seeing a record number of deaths. Over on the West Coast in general, the United States is seeing a similar thing. People are dying very frequently from fentanyl overdoses because their drugs are laced with fentanyl, a cheap and effective substance that increases highs but is also extremely lethal. And so things like safe consumption sites allow people to get sterilized needles so that they don't transmit STIs. It allows them to ensure their drugs are not laced with fentanyl. It allows them to be protected and have someone sober in the vicinity so that they are not injured or, for example, throw up and asphyxiate. It is an extremely effective way to keep people alive and then potentially and often lead to the place where they can get rehab and help. And it seems that Pierre Poillievre is proposing to force them into rehab.
Yeah, I think that there's some things that are not very clear about what he's promoting. He is very very clear on the fact that he wants to promote treatment
Right.
and put money into treatment and remove money from safe supply. We don't get much more in terms of details. Would it be a mandatory thing?
How would he make that mandatory?
Yeah.
And with rehab, you, generally speaking, are allowed to just kind of walk out.
Yeah.
I discussed a story of a acquaintance of mine last week who was in rehab. He walked out and he committed suicide. And that's a common story, frankly. People who just leave rehab, who leave psych wards because they've been forced into it by family, by friends, and they walk out.
Yeah.
It's a very common story. And so I would say that what then is your solution, Mr. Poillievre, in order to keep people there, in order to make people go there? If you are going to increase funding with rehab, I am absolutely fine with that. I'm not huge. I don't agree with decreasing or completely defunding harm reduction. But if that means we're going to have significantly better healthcare for people who need rehab, well, it's not all bad. And there is the counterpoint of this is a much softer view than a lot of conservatives have historically taken, because often conservative politicians have historically taken a punitive approach to drugs. And it seems that that discussion is on the way out. Yeah. But is Pierre Poilievre's solution, we will punish you or you go to rehab? Is that his solution? Is he going to jail anyone who does not agree to go to rehab?
Yeah, I think that that's a question definitely worth asking him because I don't know. It's not clear.
I would love to see reporters ask him that question. I hope that he would not be incredibly antagonistic towards them. He has a tendency towards that with reporters, as he has shown publicly on camera to be antagonistic towards reporters who ask real questions, serious questions. But I would love to see people throw these hard balls at him instead of lobbing softballs to him about it. Yeah. I get it. He is against this harm reduction thing, and the way, well, how does he phrase it? He phrases it as this encouraging drug epidemia. It's the way he presents harm reduction strategies is that it is an extreme measure that has only caused more homelessness. Yeah,
that it's fueling the chaos that we see in the streets of the big cities of Canada. That Justin Trudeau is killing people. That is something that he has said.
Insane. It's absolutely insane. And you know, the Quebec government, as we discussed last week, has pushed back. They clapped back at Pierre Poillievre. They said, no, we believe in this harm reduction strategy, and we will not be changing our views on it. And so I would like to see more answers from the Conservative government and Pierre Poillievre in specific to see what his actual solutions are, to see him propose things that are not just defund and inflammatory rhetoric, but I would love to see proposed solutions, because as far as I can tell, the Conservatives have no interest in proposing solutions, but they love bringing up controversies. But if you're going to bring up a controversy, I would dare say that you should have a solution in place ready to replace the thing that you are criticizing. It's called having an agenda and having policy. Conservatives should think about that.
Shots fired.
I did just fire shots. Considering the way that the government deals with most things, though, they also have a terrible track record of dealing with corporations. For example, Loblaws, which is a large market grocery store across Canada. Here in Quebec, it's Provigo. It's the same company across Canada. It's Superstore, Loblaws. I believe they own No Frills / Maxi here in Quebec. And so Loblaws has just been forced to pay $500 million because of the bread fixing scandal. Can you tell us a little bit about the bread fixing?
Yeah, so this was, I think many people will remember this from a few years ago. Massive news. Basically, the major grocers in Canada were colluding to keep bread prices artificially elevated in order to then make some money off of it. And it went on for several years. I think it was discovered in 2015. Canadians got I think we each got like $7 rebates or something like that. We got like a coupon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Score.
And so the story continues. The litigation is still going on. There's still court cases. And, Loblaws, very hard to make Loblaws look like the better person in the room. But Walmart and Sobeys are managing to do that because they are still denying having played any role in the bread price fixing.
When the news reporting clearly outlined that it was a collusion between the three major grocery chains across Canada. And I mean, it essentially continues in spirit with inflation.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe they're not colluding. They're just all kind of doing the same thing independently.
Because when you look at their profit margins, we're talking about companies that are making record profits. But they're all still increasing prices, and they're like, oh, we can't afford the food. It's inflation. We can't afford to make a profit unless we increase the prices of our food. And then you, consumer, look at your grocery bill, and it costs you $400 for 2 weeks of groceries when you shop at Provigo or when you shop at Loblaws, when it used to cost $150. And that is insane. And it might not be collusion anymore, but what's the difference between collusion and monopoly, right? When you have four companies that...
Like it's essentially a monopoly. It's monopoly light when you have like three corporations that manage all of our food.
Yeah. Because there's Walmart, Metro, Provigo / Loblaws, and Sobeys, which is, I think they have Safeway and stuff like that at West.
Okay, yeah.
And it's I don't know if Sobeys and Metro are the same. They might be the same company, but when you have very few companies, it's not literally a monopoly, but it is essentially a monopoly. And then when you go to the smaller grocery stores, the local chains, they usually charge more because they don't have the capital and the ability to buy huge amounts of one thing. And so they can't give a slightly lower price. They usually have to give a higher price because they can't afford to undercut the competition. And so I think there should be, I mean, we've discussed this before, me and Savannah, separately from this exact podcast right now. In France, there are legal limits on the amount, for example, you can charge for a baguette. A baguette in France, a normal baguette can cost €1, and a traditional baguette can cost €1.10.
What's the difference between the normal and the traditional?
It's here we call it in rustic.
Yes.
So
I love my rustic.
Yeah, they're a beautiful thing. They're usually made with like 100% whole wheat or like more like nutrient dense flour, but they're also much thicker, less airy. I'm a baguette connoisseur. For those of you who don't know, I love baguette. Obsessed with it, and I prefer here. I haven't found a rustique that I really love, but I prefer the traditional in Europe. I think they do a much better job of it. This doesn't matter.
No,
but
it's duly noted.
Duly noted. I'm going to show you the best bread place in the city.
Please do.
I'd
love
in
that.
my neighborhood. It's like a block from
Ooh,
here.
okay.
It's incredible.
Nice.
And it's $2.50 a baguette.
$2.50?
$2.50 a baguette.
Wow, I paid $3.50 at
That's what I'm
IGA
saying.
the other day.
A minimum $3.50 plus tax. Here's
Yeah.
$2.80 after tax.
God damn.
It's amazing. It's amazing. A croissant is also $2.50.
Okay.
And they're a great croissant.
Yes, nice and buttery.
Very buttery.
Oh, nice.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing. This has nothing to do with the podcast. What I was going to say is we should put a price cap on groceries, I think personally, on mandatory groceries. In
Yes.
France, they've put the price cap on milk, on eggs, on bread because they consider those to be cultural and mandatory touchstones for their culture. And I don't know about the rest of Europe, but France has these grocery caps, and I assume a lot of Europe does too. But I can't guarantee that. I've only experienced that in France and checked out the laws in France. And I think that would be an effective solution to a lot of these problems. Because, okay, I don't need to buy... I eat mostly vegan, except for cheese here and there, but I don't need a price cap on my Beyond Meat burgers, okay? That is not a necessary item for me to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we could call that a luxury. Sure.
Sure. Luxury item, no problem. Sauces, okay. We don't need a bunch of sauces to be, this is $3, never will be more. But bread is a necessary item. Bread has fed millennia of humanity.
Yeah.
It's the most important food ever. And rice.
The story of humanity is the story of bread
And wheat and rice.
Yes, and milk.
And milk, yeah. It's and eggs. And there's these very, very basic mandatory parts of human diets that we just assume will be there. And the way they are produced is problematic, and you should not eat meat. But that's not the point. These things are just eggs, milk, bread, flour, things like that, and rice. I think rice should be on that list, are necessary.
Yeah.
They are basic
Staples,
ingredients,
yeah.
staples. Potatoes, I think, should be on there too. Now, potatoes cost nothing, mind you.
Yeah.
You buy a 10-kilogram bag of potatoes,
and it lasts
it's like
you
$6.
Yeah, it lasts you forever.
But there should be a price cap because as we get poorer, people will buy potatoes more and the price will go up.
Exactly.
And so there should be a price cap on these things to protect our lives and to protect mandatory, valuable foods. And I know there's no taxes on these foods. Like there's no tax on milk.
Yeah.
There might be in Quebec. I'm not sure.
If there is, it's minor.
It's minor.
It's
almost
it's an essential. So.
Out west, there's no tax at all on milk and eggs. But when milk and eggs cost $5-6 for a carton that's not even like a free run carton, that's kind of problematic, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I used to buy the free runs. I can't afford it anymore.
That's what,
no.
$8 now?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what's a stick of butter now?
$8.
$8 for a stick of butter?
Yeah.
When you see it on sale, you're like stocking up. Like
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, it's $6.50 today.
$6.50.
Yeah.
We need price caps on these things, but it also calls into question the power of the government or the willingness of the government to either prevent corporations from doing anything or the willingness of the government to stop corporations from owning us.
Yeah. I think the government certainly wants to be seen to be doing something. That's why they keep on bringing the major grocers into all these like committee questionings and stuff like that. But it's very low stakes. Earlier, I referred to it as a low stakes shakedown. I was very proud of myself for that one.
That was a great line. That was a great line.
Thank you. But yeah, like, I mean, at the end of the day, when you have such big, powerful companies, there's a very strong lobbying. Like I said, the government wants to be seen to be doing something, but it is not actually doing anything.
And this is a bipartisan issue. Everyone on both sides wants lobbying to stop. Everyone. It is something like 98%. And those 2%, you know who they are.
Yeah.
It's like everyone, conservative or progressive, wants lobbying to end. And when you look at something, I think a really good initiative from the government that has really backfired, it was the Online News Act.
Bill C-18.
Bill C-18. They were trying to force huge tech companies with billions upon billions of dollars to pay their fair share for media to stay alive, because most independent media is dying and funded by things like ad revenue.
Yeah. And not just independent media, it's also legacy media.
Yeah, I mean, the Gazette, La Presse, all those places, those are also funded by social media shares and advertisement revenue. And I think the initiative from the government was a good idea. And then these tech companies just went, well, specifically Meta, went, too bad.
Yeah.
And just cut it.
Yeah, that's it. You can't find our content on Instagram or Facebook anymore. It's been a real blow. It's been a blocking an opportunity for growth for the Rover, and I'm sure that many other independent media would say the exact same thing.
Exactly. I'm sure the larger medias would say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm like, okay, it's a great idea. I think it's very important to have these companies pay their fair share, and Google actually has agreed to pay annually to these companies, which is, surprising. But Meta is not, and Meta would be the biggest sharing platform for everything because they own Instagram and Facebook, which are the two biggest sharing platforms. Maybe TikTok now, but maybe not. TikTok's harder to link to stuff.
Yeah.
And what did Meta do? They just said no. And so that shows the government's inefficacy against massive corporations, even when they do try to do something that I think is effective or not effective, that could be effective and is a good idea. They have no power.
Yeah.
They have no power. And what they should have done, in my opinion, this is fully editorial. Okay, you don't want to share our news? You're not allowed to operate in our country.
Yeah, but how would Canadians feel if they can't go on Facebook or Instagram anymore?
We'd get over it.
You think so?
I do think we'd get over it. And think of how much revenue Facebook would lose not having one of the G7.
Okay, yeah, we're one of the G7, but we're 40 million people.
Who spend a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we're 40 million people and we're in the G7.
Yeah,
Think about that. Like we are the top 10 largest economies, even though we only have 40 million people.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I see what you mean. I mean, listen, Canadians, if you are willing to take one for the team and not have access to your Instagram or Facebook to support us independent media, that's much appreciated. I don't know if I expect.
I don't think it would last.
Yeah.
I actually think if the government said no, we're going to ban you, I don't think it would last.
Yeah.
TikTok is potentially being banned in the United States.
Yeah.
And now
if it's banned in the United States, Canada will follow suit.
Of course,
I
absolutely agree with you, but I also am pretty sure TikTok's going to wind up caving. And the reason I think TikTok's going to wind up caving is because it's the USA.
Yeah.
They want that money.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't, in the end, they're like, yeah, we want to keep the data in China, but in the end, money talks.
Yes.
And I think Meta and, whoever else would have also, they would have caved. I think they would have caved.
All right.
And, I would say it would have been a gamble, but this is a huge profitable thing for our nation in the opinion of the government. And so they wouldn't gamble the stakes of all this advertisement revenue for all these businesses because they went, oh no, but you know what? You could have won that fight if you actually pushed back. And I know that's probably a controversy. I bet you a lot of people are like yelling at their phones right now, just like, Isaac, you can't just ban social media. Yeah, you can. Also, it's done more damage than good to our society.
Oh, man.
So, you know what? I think we should just ban it in general. Here you go. Yeah. That sounds very conservative, but I don't care. That does sound conservative, doesn't it?
Sometimes you go so far to the left that you come back around and end up on the right.
Well, it's because a lot of these issues, I think, are less partisan than we assume.
Yeah.
I think social media's damage to society, I think most people would probably agree with me, regardless of their point of view.
Yeah.
And I think most people would agree with me that the destruction of independent media is a seriously bad thing.
Yeah.
And I also think most people would agree with me that government has allowed corporate overreach to go too far. And so, yeah, I sound a little bit like old man yelling at the big media companies, but also government should clap back against these giant tech corporations who lay off tens of thousands of people because they aren't making enough profit.
I'm with you on that one.
So, on the point of corporations and the fact that the government doesn't do enough to help the world and the people, on Monday we had the hottest day ever in the record of humanity. Every year we're breaking this record. Really tired of living in these unprecedented times.
Yeah. I'm not enjoying living in like impending climate catastrophe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird because we're going to have survival. In a few years, we're going to have survival skills about this. Because Canada's overall, except for, towns like Jasper, which have burned down, Canada overall will be okay.
Yeah, there's even like I've been seeing like studies showing or like papers coming out showing that like Canada could stand to benefit from climate change.
Jesus Christ.
Like I don't know.
Don't say that.
Yeah. Do we really want to go there,
That's not an article that you should be writing.
Yeah. There was one the other day that was like, ice is preventing shipping in the Northwest Passage. And it's like, but, like there should be ice where the Northwest Passage is. Like we should not be shipping in the Northwest Passage. There should be ice there. So when you say like, ice is preventing shipping, it's like, well, that's what we want.
Yeah, Canada overall like is in the perfect geographical location. We have the largest supply of fresh water in the world. We have 4 out of 5 Great Lakes.
Yeah. We have many... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have many minerals that are needed for things like electric cars and stuff.
Yeah. We are so resource rich, and our climate is cold. So even when it's very hot, it's 30 degrees, And that's a heat wave in Canada.
Yeah.
A heat wave in Canada is 5 consecutive days that it does not go below 20 degrees at night. And in India, it's 50 degrees on the daily. And you're like, I wonder what a heat wave is for them. And as population develops, Montreal is in the perfect, ideal geographical spot to withstand climate change. We have the St. Lawrence River right there. We have essentially endless fresh water in Canada. Not literally, but essentially. And
we're well positioned.
We are
for
extremely
well
positioned, and so there was a protest at the Trudeau airport.
There were 2 protests actually. So on Tuesday, Dernière Génération Canada, a group of young people, basically they held a protest. They glued themselves to the pavement of the access ramp to the departure area of Montreal Trudeau Airport. They were there for several hours. It definitely was a disruptive event. And they were protesting as a response to the hottest day on record the day before. They were protesting use of oil and gas and continuing use of oil and gas in the climate crisis that we are living through and that we are seeing the evidence of in things like out of control wildfires out west.
Flights are, I believe, the number one industry causing climate change.
Yeah.
And flights, that doesn't just mean like
commercial
people flying to places, for vacation.
Yeah.
It's commercial flights. It's flights, shipping, globalization. You look at how certain plants are, a fruit is shipped to somewhere else in the world, produced or changed in the way that they're made, like to make an ingredient, and then shipped back across the world. And you're like, wait, why? Why didn't we just do that here? And I'm not like a protectionist or anything like that, but also it certainly is inefficient the way we are doing things, and the amount of flights is seriously problematic.
Yeah. What gets me, I agree that we should all kind of try and promote trains, stuff like that, other forms of public transit that are less
than cars.
Yeah, than cars and then airplanes, right? Like we could have high-speed trains in North America that could really do damage to the airfare.
It would totally disrupt it.
Yeah, exactly.
A 300 kilometer an hour train is a way better time than a flight. It's a way better time.
And it would consume less. It would be less emitting. So we should definitely be promoting stuff like that. But just what bothers me so much is the celebrities with their private jets.
Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah.
Flew 45 minutes to her other mansion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what really bothers me.
Or
like
Drake. Oh, man.
We're all kind of doing the best we can, composting, this and that. And yeah, Taylor takes a 40-minute
I had this discussion. One of my closest friends is a manager at the Canadian Space Agency. She's one of my best friends, and we get into debates sometimes because she's very intense. One of her biggest jobs has been to study the environmental impacts of the Canadian space programs. And so she's a hardcore climate warrior, I dare say. When I went on tour with my band, she and her partner were like, we're going to purchase the things so that your tour can be carbon neutral.
Oh,
it was so sweet. It was incredible. She's an amazing person, and she's a genius. She's an actual certified genius. Like on paper
like
is a genius.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
She's part of Mensa or something.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
La Presse has written articles about her.
Okay.
And stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm not going to name her name because that seems rude. But she's marvelous. But we'll get into me, a musician and producer and journalist, I guess now. Get into debates with her, doctor, about climate. Because I'm dumb, and I like debating people vastly more intelligent than myself, and we'll start talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, but 70% of climate change is 100 companies that are based in the United States. And then her response to that was a very good response that I don't necessarily agree with. Yeah, but those companies are being funded by our consumerism. And I was like, that's a good response.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like we are so desperate to consume that we are, Amazon. We are purchasing constantly from Amazon.
Yeah.
But also when you go to the local mom and pop shop, it costs $150 for something that costs $12 on Amazon.
See, that's the problem. And, when we're not in inflation and austerity measures, people can make that moral decision to pay more in order to not. Exactly. But we're in a situation where, no, people can't make those decisions.
No, you can't. We don't have the luxury.
Yeah.
So it's a challenging topic, and that's why I would push back against her. It's more because of luxury and affordability and reality.
It's a combination of factors, for sure.
How are we all supposed to be climate warriors?
Yeah.
Living in poverty, and not literal poverty, but relative poverty.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? I interrupted you. I apologize.
I was going to say, that like it's a combination of factors, but one of them is definitely our consumerist habits, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And corporations, they are seriously a problem, but they are also completely unchecked by the government because the government is inept in a lot of ways and continues to be a little bit harsh. For example, the Quebec government, who is harsh about languages.
That they are. So the big news this week came out from Montreal Gazette's Aaron Derfel, their health reporter, who had at least 2 articles, maybe even more in the past week, that revealed that the Office québécoise de la langue française, the language police, as we often like to refer to them, they have expanded. They're not just going into businesses to check the level of French usage. They have begun going into hospitals to check the level of French and if people are able to receive the services that in French. And while it's true that obviously protection of the French language is important,
it's very important.
It is problematic to me, and I think to many other people, to be going into hospitals that are currently overburdened and underfunded, and be checking the levels of French. I think that there are more important things that are going on at a hospital and more important conversations that we need to have about hospitals, namely about their funding, than the language. Not to say that it's not important to access services in French. I guess I would just also argue that it is important for English speakers or speakers of other languages to be able to access services in a language that they understand.
Yes. And it's interesting, the idea that someone, like, okay, if you're bilingual and you get in an argument with someone, you default to your language. You just start yelling at them in your language. You're just like, even if I'm arguing with my friend in French, I'll just switch to English and be fuck you. No,
it's true. When you're emotional, it becomes very hard to speak in a second language.
In crisis, your brain does not go to your second language. So you're sitting there bleeding, like your leg's broken.
Yeah.
And you're like, excuse me, my leg is broken. They're like, en français.
En français, s'il vous plaît. Au Québec, sit. And then, so the other thing that I want to point out from Aaron Derfel's reporting, you can find this on Montreal Gazette if you're interested in reading more about it. But he uncovered this like 31-page document provided by the health ministry in the aftermath of the passing of Bill 96, so the bill that strengthens the language laws in Quebec. And so this 31-page document seems to be trying to clarify for hospital staff when they are permitted to use English. But it certainly, reading through the parts that he highlights in his article, it certainly doesn't seem to answer a lot of questions and kind of poses more questions. It provides these like example scenarios to kind of like illustrate when the use of English is acceptable. But honestly, I'll give an example of one. There's several others in his piece. A father shows up with his 10-year-old son. The 10-year-old son can speak French, but not the father. The 10-year-old is experiencing an emergency and suddenly can no longer speak. In that situation, then the hospital staff are permitted to use English with the father. Very convoluted, I'd say. And yeah, I don't know. I think that there's some concerning stuff going on when you're trying to go into all these examples, and then you're creating a situation where hospital staff are then, okay, am I allowed to use English in this setting? Like, is this permissible under the very convoluted guidelines that were being provided, or am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get told off for using English in this situation where I actually should be using French? It invites a lot of.
I also question: are the language police allowed to like walk into a examination?
So, but what it seems based on Derfel's reporting is that they are planned. They notify the hospital beforehand. They're not just showing up and going in and.
Seems like a breach of confidence to me.
Yeah, it is strange.
Imagine meeting with your lawyer, and there was like some law that said you can't meet with a lawyer in English.
Yeah.
And but everything that you say to a lawyer is completely confident.
Yeah.
Everything.
I think that they do walkthroughs. There's an example of again, I'm referring to Derfel's reporting here. There's an example that he lists where apparently a similar the Office Québécois de la langue française went to the Jewish General Hospital and did a walkthrough of the site, and then apparently they pointed to a plaque, and it was a plaque that is it lists the donors, and the plaque was in English and Yiddish, and it's just a plaque saying like this hospital has received donations from these people basically, and apparently the OQLF representative who was there said that this plaque should also be in French. I'm again, like I support protecting the French language and everything. I guess I question if we really need to be making that hospital pay for a plaque to list the names of donors in French. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are more important things.
It's the irony being that the government funds the hospital, who then they will fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
They're finding themselves.
Yeah.
But it's just a crazy concept. Like,
Yeah.
it's a crazy concept to demand that somebody, after 3 months, I believe the timeline is, right? 3 months or 6 months?
After 6 months, a newcomer to
Do you know how
Quebec.
hard it is to learn a language?
Yeah. No,
and
absolutely.
to learn a detailed, technical way to talk about your body? I'm pretty much fluent.
Yeah.
And if you started asking me questions about various parts of my body, I would collapse.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I had a personal experience with the healthcare system earlier
You're
this
fluent
summer.
too, essentially.
I'm fluent. I'm a historic Anglophone, as they say.
Right. So am I.
Well, but I'm. Oh no, you were born in Gatineau.
I was born in Ottawa.
You're born in Ottawa. Sorry. Okay.
So I'm totally a historic Anglophone.
No, but a historic Anglophone has to be born in Quebec to be.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I'm fucked.
Yeah. No, so you're not a historic Anglophone. But I am a historic Anglophone. I am born in Quebec. My parents are born in Quebec to historic Anglophone,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But yes, I am bilingual. I feel very comfortable in French. Right. I had an experience a few months ago where I needed an emergency surgery. It was not life-threatening or anything, but I needed a surgery. And most of the whole experience happened in French, and I was okay with that. The surgeon was francophone, didn't really speak much English. But when just before going into the surgery, I met with the anesthesiologist to go over, what kind of anesthetic we would do to kind of decide that. And I really appreciated that he asked me before what language I would be comfortable having the conversation in. And I said English. And I'm really happy that he did that, because it's a very technical conversation. You want to make sure that you understand the questions that you're being asked to then respond the appropriate way, because if you get the wrong type of anesthetic, it can be very serious, right? So
yep.
Even though I am someone who is comfortable in French and most of the experience happened in French, the fact that I could have like a very technical conversation like that in English,
you need it.
Yeah, is super helpful. And like François Legault a few years ago when Bill 96 passed, I remember him saying that the rights of historic Anglophones to access healthcare in English will not be affected by this bill. I knew right away that was bullshit. Like,
right.
there's no way that there wouldn't be an impact, and clearly we are seeing the impact.
Yeah, yep. And honestly, it's to be expected with the Legault government. Guys, that has been the Rovers podcast, The Midnight Choir. We hope you have enjoyed this little conversation about the stuff that's going on across the country. Please, if you know people who are struggling or suffering over in Jasper and Alberta, reach out to them, see how they are. These are the kind of subjects we love talking about this. We encourage you to talk to people in your lives, your community. Community investment conversations is the way to build a better future for all of us. So if you have people who are like, these people are getting drugs and the government is supporting drug users, talk to them about harm reduction. Talk to people about the subjects that we've talked about. Talk to them about corporate overreach. Talk to them about these things, because honestly, you're going to find a shocking amount of common ground. You're going to find a shocking amount of people who actually also just want all of us to live better lives. And community is the way to that future. So we hope you join our community. Go to therover.ca/support-us. We are trying to create that community, have that discussion without yelling at each other, being harsh to each other, except on Twitter, where I will fuck you up, motherfuckers. And Chris will fuck you up the most.
Yes.
Are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter.
Are you a rage machine?
No. I'm like
I struggle to see you ever rageful.
Yeah, I'm like a ghost on Twitter. I just like repost and that's it.
I exist.
Just amplify.
I have an account, but I've never posted, not once.
It's,
it's a toxic place.
It's a cesspool. It's become a cesspool. It wasn't always like that. There was a golden era.
The past 5 years have been terrible.
Yeah.
Reddit, same deal. Like Facebook, same deal. Just social media sites are rough. I never talk about politics online. I only do it face to face, and it's even when it's tense, it's okay. Because face to face, it's a lot harder to just ream someone out.
Oh, absolutely. People will say things online that they would never say to your face.
Never.
Yeah.
And so I really encourage everyone, join our community, like, subscribe, check out the audio version of this podcast if you want to take it on the go. It's on every single platform, every single one, bar none. I encourage you to go check that out. therover.ca/support-us. Thank you so much for listening to us. We hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and we will see you next Friday. Thank you, Savannah, for being here with me.
Thank you, Isaac.
Have a great day.